I remember my father in the 1990s, and I was deep into the pre-owned business, and he said to me, "Tom, you're making money off of what? Used watches? Are you nuts? That's never going to last." Now here it's 2026, and I tell you, almost anybody I talk to is like, "Oh, what kind of business are you in?" "Oh, it's in the pre-owned watch business." Right away, all kinds of questions come about.
Welcome to Watch Smarts, where smart people get smarter about watches. I'm your host, David Newman. Let's jump right in. Well, we have a very special treat today. Thomas Pozsgay, industry insider, guru, expert, certified pre-owned wizard, and we'll learn more about Thomas's background. But until then, welcome to the show, Thomas. Great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
So we started chatting right before we turned on the microphones. Tell us a little bit about your entree into the world of watches and how that came to be.
Well, I was probably when I really got into watches, I was working for a small jewelry store in a strip mall, which was kind of interesting because he was independent and we could really maneuver very quickly. But it was a dead end job because I wasn't going to be able to get anywhere. The guy that owned it, and a friend of mine had been working at a company called Tourneau in New York City, and I applied for the job, and I got it immediately. And that's where I entered into the world of watches. We carried, I must have been 30 different brands. Yeah. So I was exposed to all of the major brands: Rolex, Patek, Audemars, Vacheron Constantin, all the way down to our own brand, our private label. Yeah. And I was fascinated with watches. We started a trade-in policy early in the 90s. The brands were really upset with us because if you remember back, us old people would remember back, watches were discounted very heavily. In fact, a lot of the Rolex ADs would use Rolex as a loss leader to reel the customer in and sell them a piece of jewelry where they can make a much better profit. Yeah. So they were getting really on our case, and one of our marketing people came up with the idea of, hey, let's trade in watches. We can cover our bases with that. And we knew nothing about what the price of a watch would be. What would be the cash value of the watch in the 90s? Yeah. So we came up with a plan of, hey, if it's a better quality watch, we're going to give them a 20% discount. If it's a better quality watch, then we're going to give them a 30% discount. But it's amazing how many watches we took in that first year. So we decided to open up pre-owned watches. And it got off to a pretty slow start in the beginning. But as the years went by, we accumulated a lot of data. And at the same time, on the sales floor, we were educating people about the beauty of mechanical watches, the automatics and mechanical, rather than quartz. Right. In the 80s, even into the early 90s, most people would come in, no, I just want a quartz watch. I don't want to play around with it. I put it down for a couple of days, it stops. I want it to have time all the time and maybe change the battery every 2 or 3 years. Yeah. But we started educating the people of the beauty of, I call it nano technology from 100 years ago. Intricate, small little parts, some watches with 300 some odd parts in there, gears moving in time, telling you the exact time. And then, of course, all the complications that came with the watches during those 90s. You began to see power reserves. You began to see day, date, month, moon phase. Day, date, month, moon phase chronographs. Yeah. Perpetual calendar watches. Perpetual calendar was mind-blowing. One gear moves every 4 years. And to figure that all out. And people started taking a look at that. In the pre-owned department, then more and more collectors came out and started looking at some of the older watches. So basically, it started off as a vintage department rather than just a pre-owned department. As time went by, we started promoting the fact that it's pre-owned and there's value there. And that's basically how I got started in this whole business. And I've had a passion for it ever since.
Yes. You mentioned that when you started working at Tourneau, that's when you bought your first Rolex and you sort of fell in love with all the different brands. What model Rolex was it? Do you remember?
Explorer.
Very nice. And do you still have this watch with you now?
I'm wearing it today.
That's so good. Totally fantastic. There it is. Yes. Well, let's talk about pre-owned, because this was I don't think people understand today. This was a revolutionary idea. I mean, you mentioned that a lot of the brands were upset, but since then, fast forward to today, a few years ago, a lot of these brands now have their own certified pre-owned program. Finally, like Rolex just had this a few years ago, that they said, hey, we can certify these pre-owned watches and I think people will buy them. But back in the 90s, this was like unheard of, correct?
Correct. In fact, Rolex was adamantly against the pre-owned department.
Yeah.
They felt that we were taking away sales from their new.
Yeah.
And anytime we opened up a store, we would always have pre-owned in there, and especially the larger stores like 57th Street or Las Vegas.
Yeah.
They wanted the pre-owned as far away from their shop as possible. I remember a conversation with one of the executives from Cartier, Switzerland, and we were at the 57th Street store, and he was thinking about having a shop right next to the pre-owned department. And I said to him, listen, I think it enhances your watch. Because if a person looks at a new watch, looks over there, sees that it's also pre-owned, that means there's value to the watch.
Yeah.
So that if you buy it, you wear it, you enjoy it, you want to trade it in or you want to sell it, you're going to get something for it.
Yeah.
Cartier did open it up. However, I still see, now it blew me away that Rolex is enhancing or embracing something that was started in the 90s by us. And it's like, that's a tough battle. It took them a long time.
35 years, and they finally got the memo. The memo. Yeah.
Although I still see some of the brands, like I go into an Omega store, a mono brand store, on Fifth Avenue, and I had to get some watches serviced for them because couldn't get parts, and I always like to keep the watches 100% the way they're supposed to be.
Sure.
And they go upstairs, and there's a huge room, and they have the same watches up there as they have downstairs. And I'm like, wow, this would be a great room for Omega to open up pre-owned Omega watches, and even vintage. I mean, they have such a history, and they have the capabilities of being able to, instead of opening up a museum, is to gather up all those watches that are vintage, the old Seamasters, the old DeVilles, the Speedmasters, and they just don't do it. I scratch my head. They'll get there, I think, one day.
Let's talk about watches as an investment, because I think there's a lot of incorrect information, incorrect beliefs about this. And I want to talk about it maybe in two different veins, both of which you have tremendous experience in. One is, as you mentioned, the vintage watches, where you'd pick up a watch that's already 20, 30, 50 or more years old. And the other is people who are buying new watches today as a quote unquote investment, sort of rolling the dice. Maybe it'll go up, maybe it'll go down, who knows? My understanding from talking with other guests is that there's kind of a fallacy that, like, any good watch is going to be an investment that increases in value over time. Most watches don't. Some watches do, and you get lucky. Or if you really know what you're doing, then it's not getting lucky. But what are some cautionary tales, or what are some lessons learned about watches that go up in value versus watches that go down?
I have been asked that question many, many, many times. Is this a good investment? I'm not a financial advisor.
Right.
My pat answer to this was that there's certain watches will retain more of their value than other watches. In other
Yeah.
words, Rolex, because of the data that you can see that the Rolex watches retain more of their value because there's more demand for it. Likewise with Patek Philippe or Audemars Piguet. Other watches equally as good, like Vacheron Constantin, for instance. I love Vacherons, but they don't retain as much of their value.
Yeah.
And like you said, you may be lucky enough to buy one. Now, if you hold on to a watch, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 years, yeah, it might go up. I always advise people, get something that you like, wear it, enjoy it, look at it with pride. Look at, wow, this is an amazing piece of equipment that I have on my wrist. And go by that. If you're going to want to jump into the investment game, good luck. I've seen many, many people get hurt by thinking, especially during the pandemic, where flippers came out all over the place.
Yeah.
And I began to think that it was just dealer to dealer that was buying these watches because the prices just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
If I'm wealthy, would I spend, unless I really, don't care about money, which that's not how you get wealthy. Would I buy a Rolex Daytona for $48,000 because I got a 3-year waiting period? I don't know,
Yeah.
But then you saw the market crash on it. So a lot of people got hurt.
Yeah.
Buy something you like. Go by your heart, not your mind.
Such a great piece of advice. Absolutely. Hey, quick commercial break here. Isn't this a great interview? By the way, if you know someone who loves watches as much as you do, share this show with them. Direct them to watchsmarts.com or tell them to find Watch Smarts on their favorite podcast platform. I thank you, and so will they. Let me ask you, because some of these brands, we're just coming off the big show in Geneva, of course, with all the new models and all the, all the big hype and the big press releases from all the big brands. What's the deal today with these waiting lists? And it's not only a waiting list. Some of these brands they're acting like Ferrari, where you can't just go in and buy any Ferrari. You have to buy a couple of Ferraris first, maybe the ones you don't want, and then you can get to the one that you do want. Not that Ferraris and Rolexes are in the same category, but you get the idea. What's your take on that, and why is some of what's happening, do you think?
I have friends that work at Rolex, still work at Rolex.
Sure.
I kind of believe that they can only produce X amount of watches. If you jump up the production, you're going to sacrifice quality. And that's not something that I think Rolex would want to do. They want to make sure that everything is out there. Is some of it artificial? Yeah, maybe, but it's maybe it's marketing. The demand for Rolex it has blown me away. I mean, I worked with a lot of Gen Z people in the past couple of years, and it was amazing to me, first, how well they know the watches. I mean, they go down to the point where they'll tell you the caliber number, the millimeter, which is what dial is better. They really, really, really know watches. And they've jumped into buying watches. So the demand is huge.
Yeah.
Rolex controls 30% of the watches that are sold on the new market, 34% on the pre-owned market. That's huge. That's absolutely huge. The closest one that comes to them is Cartier, I think, at 10%, or Omega. I know Omega's dropped quite a bit. But the artificial, is it artificial? Yeah, maybe in some aspect, but I understand the constraints. It's going to be interesting to see when Rolex builds their new facility and are able to produce more watches, what happens with these waiting lists. At this point, a lot of people taking advantage. Well, you got to have it, so you're going to pay over retail for it amongst the gray marketeers or the 47th Street people. So it's starting to loosen up a little from what I hear. I also have to still keep in touch with people at Bucherer. Certain models are always going to be very tight in demand, especially the Daytona. It's just hugely popular, and the Submariner. Other than
Yeah.
that, I think most of the other watches, you'll see that it's going to start softening up a little bit. It's a bad press, I think, for the brands to have that. Oh, you got to pay X amount of dollars to be able to buy this watch. That's such horrible way to present something.
Yeah.
And I believe that some of the ADs do not do that.
Yeah.
Hey, we'll put you on a waiting list and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Some people I've known have gotten a watch in 2 to 3 weeks. They put it on the list and, they're trying. It's not
Right.
easy.
Yeah, it's absolutely, you're right. And it's a complicated series of factors as you're describing it. I want to go to the other end of the spectrum on the more affordable side. You and I were talking right before we turned on the show about Seiko. I'm a huge Seiko fan. I love the old Seikos. I love the new Seikos. Talk to us about your experience with Seiko.
Well, I started selling Seikos in the 70s when I was working for K Jewelers. I mean, that was the watch that everybody came for. Nobody, it was the Vietnam vets were coming back. Instead of buying Rolexes at the store, they were buying Seikos, and we were bringing them in by the droves, and it just absolutely took off. It did fall back when we started educating the customers on Swiss made.
Yeah.
But what I'm seeing is the Grand Seiko. What an amazing watch that they're creating over there. Anywhere from the beauty of the dial to the spring drive, just it's amazing. They came out with a spring drive that's going to be plus or minus 20 seconds a year. It's just amazing to me. I mean, technologically, Japanese are they're coming back to the forefront, and some of the older Seikos, because of that, they had a Submariner type. They had the complications. They had the automatic watches, and they're coming back, and it's kind of nice to see. A little competition is always good.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and then there's the affordable Seikos that are a couple $100. There is, as you mentioned, there's Grand Seiko. There's also Credor. Do you have much experience with the Credor line from Seiko?
Not much experience with them.
Interesting.
I have to keep my eye on that.
Yeah.
I have I would not be able to comment on that.
Sure. Let me ask you, because you mentioned about your Rolex Explorer, what are some of the other favorites that you have in your personal collection?
Well, I have an old, I don't have much, a large collection, because like I said, I always looked at it, how much money can I make for the company?
Right.
And it's just the way I am. But I do have an early 1960s GMT, gilt underline dial. I have a Glacute Pan Lunar, which I really like. It's one of my favorite watches. Very understated. Nobody knows who they are.
Right.
I have a couple of B&Ms, Baume Merciers, that were given to me from the brand. Corum that was given to me from the brand. I have a couple more Rolexes that date just. That's about it. Very low key.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm curious, Thomas, do people in your life, friends, family, do they notice or care about your watches?
Some do, some don't.
So there's some fans and there's some civilians.
Yeah, that's right. It's like in life and anything, they are, the one thing I got to say, universally, both from family and friends. I remember my father in the 1990s, and I was deep into the pre-owned business. And he said to me, Tom, you're making money off of what? Used watches? Are you nuts? That's never going to last. Now here it's 2026. And I tell you, almost anybody I talk to is like, what kind of business are you in? Oh, it's in the pre-owned watch business. Right away, all kinds of questions come about. So, yeah, they may not like watches, but they are fascinated by this whole circular economy that with watches that you can buy it. I mean, these watches are made to last generations, not just disposable. A watch made today 2, 3 generations down the line, could still be a viable working piece of art.
Hey, it's David Newman, your humble host. Listen, do me a huge favor. If you love this show, if you love watches, would you do me a wonderful favor and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform? Reviews and ratings mean the world, and they help other smart watch lovers find the show just like you did. Thank you in advance for your help. I'm curious, just from a personal style standpoint, when you're out and about, what makes you stop and look twice at a watch?
Unique ones. I go spot a Rolex far away, and I go, okay, but if I see an Langenson, oh, okay, that's wow. Some of the Patek's, the old Calatravas. I'm a big fan of Vacheron Historique watches. Although they're not really good investments, they do not retain the value that they had. Maybe it's starting to gain some steam on that. Anything unusual, I like unusual.
Yeah,
And I'll stop. I'll actually, oh, that's a cool watch. What is that? I'll stop a person on the street and say, "Wow."
that's great. From either from a collecting standpoint or even from just maybe buying your first serious watch standpoint, what is something that beginners focus on that really actually doesn't matter?
If it's an investment or not.
Okay. Yeah.
Everybody, it's like the meme stock, GameStop, when
Yes.
it was insane, or AMC stock. I go to the movies a bit. There's nobody in the movie theater anymore, yet their stock is going up because somebody does something. I always go take a look, try a watch on. Although most people point by and click, it blows me away how one expensive $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 watches we sold at My Gemma, that people just point click. You had the return policy so they can try it on at home, but try the watch on. Does it feel good on your wrist? Do you like it? Is there a passion behind it? That's the way I try to veer people. And most people that I've veered that way are very happy with their purchases. And that makes me happy. My adrenaline rush comes when I buy a watch for a company and I see it sold. I go, whoa, okay. I always am very fearful with almost every watch that I bought. Am I going to be able to sell it? So I run this roller coaster of, did I buy it? Did I buy it right? Are we going to make money on it? And then when it sells, I get very, very excited. That's my rush.
Both financially and knowing that it's going to a good home that's going to bring some happiness to someone.
That's what I always like. I've always been a big proponent of when you're buying a watch, whether it's an AD. If you're buying a pre-owned watch, it's not from an AD. Make sure that the watch, if it's over 5 years old, has been serviced.
Yeah.
Make sure the parts are genuine parts. These are the hard things about a pre-owned business right now. The lack of watchmakers, the lack of a watchmaker with parts accounts. There's a lot of people have no parts account that are really good watchmakers, but if I got to replace a part, it better be from the brand. I'm very, very keen on getting a watch out to market that a person can put on their wrist, plug and play, I call it. You don't have to worry. You don't have to run and get it reserviced. Make sure the crystal is brand correct. And these are the things that there's a lot of cheating going on, sadly.
Yeah. Let me ask you, just from a either a certified pre-owned perspective or even a new perspective, you mentioned about Rolex being the loss leader, which is funny, of course. People discounting Rolexes to bring people into the jewelry store. But my question is, what's a watch that was considered expensive at the time, but now, in the benefit of hindsight, totally worth it?
What watch is considered expensive?
Expensive at the time. Like, people are like, oh, I'm not sure we can sell it at, whatever it was, $2,000. But today it seems like a great bargain.
A Langenson would fall into that category.
Okay.
When they first came out, they were expensive.
Yeah.
But once you start looking at the mechanics of it, it just unbelievable. Unbelievable. Slightly different than the Swiss way of doing things. They're more Germanic, and the precision that they made everything. I count them as one of those that, oh, we're never going to be able to sell it, and it did. IWC is another one, especially when they came out with some of their perpetual calendars, etc. And again, it's starting to make a better comeback. JJ Lecoultre is another one that I think that is seems expensive, but on the long run, I see a lot of future for that brand. I remember I was buying Reversos for my Gemma, and once I put it out onto the market, it was amazing that it sold in 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
It's a very quiet brand, but people that know. So as I start selling them so quickly, as you raise the price a little bit more the next time around, and it just kept going. It snowballs.
Well, you mentioned My Gemma. Tell us a little bit about My Gemma, mygemma.com. Their tagline, by the way, is the best kept secret in luxury resale. Let's make them not the best kept secret. Tell us about what is My Gemma and how does it work, and give us the scoop.
Oh, My Gemma basically deals in 3 different things. Pre-owned handbags, branded jewelry, and watches. The model is, and it's quite an interesting model. You would present your item on the internet. They would give it to, like me, for watches, another person for the handbags, another person for jewelry. We would estimate it based upon what we see. It goes back to the salesperson who actually calls the customer. So it's not just an email, this is what we think we could sell it for, blah, blah, blah. It's actually, they get in touch with a human being that explains the process, explains to them how we came up with the price. So it's transparency. In watches, for instance, we will tell them what the average selling price is. You have great tools out there today, whether it's watch charts or a Chrono 24, that can give you a very, very clear indication of what watches are selling for. A watch charts more so than Chrono 24. They give you what they're listing for. Watch charts actually gives you what they sold for, which is the most important thing. And we give them that information, and then we tell them, well, we have to service the watch. If it had a strap on it, we're going to have to put a strap on there. It has all the links. And you develop this human connection. And that human connection is, I think, pushes a lot of people to send their watches in for us. We do a final evaluation. They get it on the like side, on the selling side. There's a team that actually will talk to the customer if they want, if they call us. And again, you're talking to a human being. It's not email to email. It's a human being that you actually talk with. And I think that's what's missing with a lot of e-commerce websites. You get it in the brick and mortar, but you don't get it it's become cold. And I think that there's some warmth that needs to be added to the e-commerce websites. That's what makes us different.
Well, let's do, as we're wrapping up here, I've got a lightning round, which is just 5 quick questions. Then I'm going to ask you if there's any final thoughts or parting words of wisdom that you'd like to share. But before we get to that, the lightning round is just super quick, A or B kinds of questions, a little bit of fun here, popcorn style. So, Thomas, question number 1 is strap or bracelet?
Bracelet.
Vintage or modern?
Vintage.
1 great watch or 5 good ones?
1 great watch.
Buy new or hunt for pre-owned?
Both. A and B.
Nice. And then finally, loud watch or quiet watch?
Quiet for me.
Excellent. Okay, perfect. Any final thoughts, parting words of wisdom for our listeners as we wrap up?
Live life. Enjoy it. Because time goes by quickly.
Amen times 10. Thomas Pozsgay, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you a lot. And that wraps up another episode of Watch Smarts. Listen, if you love this show, if you love watches, subscribe, download, leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast platform, and check out all the free resources waiting for you at watchsmarts.com.